Alright, what is up, y'all? I've wanted to make this video for so long and tell you about my origin story, why handstand for me. And ironically, the thing that was stopping me from making the video was my handstand practice itself. So, as a few of you may know, lately I have been healing a wrist injury that I got skiing, and it's day 6 or 7 without doing handstands, so I've had a little more time to think, and finally decided to put together a video for you. So I'm gonna take it slow, but try to stick to the point, and I hope you enjoy. So, my origin story starts on my family's farm in Vermont. This is where I grew up. It's where I spent 21 years of my life living, breathing, and working. And I was part of the still part of the 5th generation to be born and raised on the farm. Farm is over 100 years old, so there's a lot of history there in itself. And I had a pretty typical childhood. I went through elementary school, had many close friends, never played sports, never did outside extracurricular activities. High school came, and I did have an interest in basketball and some other sports, track and field, and had a little bit more freedom once I could drive myself around. So I played some sports, and I made friends based on the sports that I played, but also had some friends outside, and continued to work on the family farm. This is where it's where I generated my income for whatever it was at that age. But you know, a lot of my friends didn't have jobs up until the end of high school, and I had been working since I was 10 years old for a little bit of money here and there, and that only got more serious as I got older. So at the time I didn't realize it, but I was put in a situation unlike a lot of people, in that I had the opportunity to work and make something for myself from a very young age, and I didn't have to ask for a lot. I was sort of had it instilled in me that I could work for the things that I wanted and earn those things. So that didn't really play into my physical handstand or calisthenics development until later on. Somewhere along in high school, I decided that I wanted to change the way I looked. And selfishly, this started from, I think, an aesthetics, an opinion about the way I looked that in my head and my heart wasn't what I wanted. So I decided to change that. I had friends who were going to the gym, and I remember a series of conversations with my parents about going to the gym. And I think my dad basically looked at me and said, like, Ezra, we have too much to do here, and there's plenty of work that can keep you in shape. You're not going to the gym. I'm not bringing you to the gym. And I hated this. So I used that motivation to start something for myself. And that was, at the time, a very simple bodyweight routine. I think I started with push-ups in the morning, and I eventually found a pull-up bar that you could put in your door and bought that, started doing chin-ups and pull-ups and experimenting with what I could do. I don't remember if I started out being able to do chin-ups and pull-ups, but I was a skinny boy in high school who'd played a few sports. I could do a few chin-ups. I was naturally strong from working on the farm. So, chin-ups, pull-ups, push-ups, and variations of those things that I came up with. And pretty quickly I started to see some change in my body, and I was happy with it. And I did become obsessed. I became obsessed. And I remember feeling like I needed to set challenges for myself to see how many I could do in a day, right? Because the first thing that everyone's able to change is numbers of things. It's like if you can do 10 push-ups, now try and do 20. Now try and do 30. And same with pull-ups, same with anything else I was doing. Bodyweight squats. I challenged myself to do more and more and more of each. And probably a year went by before I really discovered the community, calisthenics community on YouTube. I didn't have internet access until I was a young teen, so somewhere along there I discovered the calisthenics community in New York and in foreign countries on YouTube. And I started just becoming obsessed and using this as motivation and inspiration to change my own body and do more. And that evolved my practice a bit. I definitely learned from others in the space, in particular those bar communities in Brooklyn and Queens and even some in Manhattan, and I aspired to be like those guys. All I wanted was more volume, more technique, better clean muscle ups, bigger sets. That was all I thought about. And it definitely evolved my practice. Somewhere along the summer, at or around graduation of high school, I built my own pull-up bar and dip bar set in the backyard in Vermont, and I was so proud. And that was what I used to practice. I did bodyweight squats, I did pull-ups, push-ups, muscle-ups, straight bar dips, just, so many things you can do on a pull-up bar and a set of parallel bars. Now, somewhere around 2012 to 2013, I saw one of those bar communities do handstands. I don't remember who it was or what they were doing. And frankly, looking back at it now, it's like, it was an ugly handstand for sure. But I saw someone do a handstand, and it definitely blew my mind because I didn't realize it was part of a calisthenics practice, or could be part of a calisthenics practice. And I think mentally, I probably didn't commit to learning a handstand for quite a long time. But for some reason, I had it in my head that it was gonna be as easy to start and learn as this other basic bodyweight stuff was. And that was all I needed. That was the chain reaction. However, I started kicking up, thinking I would hold a handstand. And of course I didn't. It took me more than a year of doing my bodyweight practice at home, in the evenings, in the afternoons, still working, and then kicking up into nothing for, more than a year. Here and there, no disciplined or consistent practice. It was just basically kick up whenever I could. In the morning, in the afternoon, in the evenings, just whenever I thought of it. And I got some good progress, actually, after a while. Probably more than 6 months of nothing. And I eventually incorporated the wall a little bit. Like a lot of beginners, I would use my back to wall, kick up against that, and just try and balance. I don't remember any other details. I eventually was able to change leg positions a little bit, just based on how I kicked up or where I was working, and I thought it looked cool. It was a challenge. I did take some videos and pictures of myself, and I would show family and be so proud, and people thought it was cool. So I think it reinforced my belief that it was cool, and it was gonna be something, even if it wasn't really much of a skill, because I didn't understand technique or what it meant to have clean technique, or I didn't fucking know what a line was, or like alignment, or why balance was important, or even efficiency in balance. So I didn't think of any of that. I just kicked up and stood on my hands. That evolved for me, though, over the years. I went through school, I went to my undergraduate degree, met some people who had similar interests and who pushed me to be better in my practice. Of course, material online improved the more time I spent there researching calisthenics, and then specifically handstands as a practice. I found inspirational teachers, and I'd say now, like, what was some of the best and first online material available. And slowly, over the course of 4 years, my handstand improved. I was able to improve shoulder mobility, improve my confidence, kicking up, consistency. I included more conditioning. I decided I wanted to work towards things like a handstand press. Formerly, I didn't even know those things existed. So my world of handstands was very full at the moment. I had plenty to work on. I was actually having trouble dedicating enough time so that I felt like I was getting somewhere. I was dealing with I dealt with a number of injuries along the way, but I learned through trial and error that those are part of the journey. And by the end of school, nearly 6 years after I had started pursuing handstands at all, realized that they were a thing, I had a pretty decent handstand 6 years later. I probably hold it for an inconsistent 60 seconds. It was very much a part of practice that still wasn't priority, but had become more important to me as a skill that I wanted to maintain, and just knew that I enjoyed it, had fun, I could be creative. It was ever challenging, always a challenge, and I enjoyed that part of it more so than doing reps and intense, long, complicated sets of the basic calisthenics movements that I had done years earlier. And today, today handstand for me is about confidence. It's about developing the expression, the freedom to express myself. And I've seen the way it has impacted others' own confidence, and I relate to that in some ways, but in some ways I feel like you can't force things from a practice that don't organically show up in the practice. And confidence in itself was something I had a lot of trouble developing when I was younger, and I didn't realize it. I was inherently shy and sort of kept to myself. And handstands, not specifically handstands, but my overall physical practice helped me to develop greater confidence in myself, and who I was. I also enjoy just testing the limits of my capabilities. I think that's something that most who do something physical can relate to. The body is sort of an endless chasm for physical improvement, and there are fucking numerous cases of just amazing things being accomplished at young, old, middle age in nearly every realm or possibility of physical practice. So I enjoy testing the limits as far as that goes. And then I wanted to explain a little bit about how it happened for me and how that has evolved. So first, like I said, I was kicking up thinking that kicking up in my kitchen, my living room, my bedroom was gonna be some way to learn the handstand without, like that was the fastest way to learn the handstand. And well, obviously it's not. And I learned that through trial and error, purely through trial and error. There was no standout tutorial or guide or rule book that I followed or coach that I had. Only later in my physical practice did I seek out advice from people who were better than me at things, and I still consider myself to be self-taught. So despite having input from coaches along the way, occasional programs written for me, they haven't impacted my practice in a way that I would say has changed the course of how I train. Never. It's always been my values, my principles, use what I like, discard what I don't, and that's always been a part of my mission statement for myself and of course for any future student, because I didn't know that I was going to teach these things or be a personal trainer who specialized in this stuff. No idea. So without thinking, I developed a set of values, and it took me from that kick-up stage to now where I have a program, I have a plan, I have a timeline, and I set specific goals. And I do still ask for input from higher level coaches or performers themselves, because I believe that the community has a responsibility to share information freely, and that should be a priority for people when it comes to just changing the course of their own physical practice and potential students. Plus, I think it changes an individual when they are forced or choose to teach things. You know, it solidifies our own understanding. So the last thing I really want to say, because it's been fucking 20 minutes, is just who I do it for now. Because this is a hard question, and I challenge people to answer this for themselves. It's mostly me, for sure. It still is mostly me. I like to express and enjoy a challenge. I have this vision of just being able to do what I want anywhere, anytime. It's like the possibility and the idea of always being ready for anything. Being able to just access a skill like handstand or a one-arm handstand or a variation of this and do that anywhere is like, you know, bone chilling. It's, for me, what my entire practice has culminated in up to this point. And only very recently have I expanded into or included the idea that teaching some of this stuff is another way to expand my own understanding, challenge myself to simplify and then share. Develop an actual set of principles around the learning process that I went through myself. You know, it's also for those who feel limited by space, time, and environment. I started when the odds were against me, and sharing my origin story will hopefully help people in that same position decide to do something, despite the odds being against them, despite their family saying, you don't need a gym, despite having no other friends who were interested in this, despite, you know, needing to build things for yourself, and despite going through injury and pain and suffering. You are in a place right now that feels dark, and you can definitely build your own way out of that. The last two things are a little bit less related, but still important. So potentially someday to perform something. I do have this idea on the back burner that if I could develop an act, that would be a fantastic way to show my love for what I do. And then lastly, you know, sometimes I think that for my own children someday, I'd like them to know that their dad gave his heart and soul to something that he loved, and that was worth it. And I want them to see that they can do that in life, and whatever it is, time invested into a practice along with some reflection and a good healthy challenge is something that will grow a person into a figure, at least, who can change people, who can really impact others. And the same kind of goes for future students in mind. If that's part of their development, is to change who they are as an individual, and the vehicle that they use to do that is a physical practice, then that's it. It's my job. It's all I want. That realization is kind of like the pinnacle of what I'm doing. So, that's my fucking story, people, and I hope you enjoyed it, even though it's long, and we made it to the end. So, I would love to hear other people's origin stories, why you do this, how you do it, and for whom do you do it. Yeah. Peace, everybody.